Well, I guess it shows, first of all, the enormous convening power that China has to get such a bunch of people, at a time of war in many places, over to China. But in my view, generally, this meeting is sort of backward-looking and forward-looking. It's backward-looking in this respect. The BRI, as we know it, is basically over. And we're moving into a new era these days where we're getting, as Samantha said, it's smaller, quality over quantity. That's talk about making a virtue over necessity. Most of the countries that China has lent to can't borrow anymore, so they're not going to do big projects. And China's issue now with many BRI countries, you look at Uganda, Zambia, Sri Lanka, Laos, some islands in the Pacific, is how to pay the money back, not to borrow more money. So that big part of the BRI is over, and BRI lending has been going down since about 2018, actually. And we're now moving to a new era where China is putting its ideas for an alternative world order on top of what it's done with the BRI, Global Development Initiative, Global Security Initiative, and the like. And you see that in the meeting in Beijing at the moment.
Richard, it's fascinating what you're saying about sort of the BRI losing its appeal right now. I'm interested because you did mention in times of war how the geopolitical risk factors into all of this, because there's been a lot of criticism around China's response, not just to, of course, the war over in Ukraine, but more recently not condemning Hamas. I'm curious in terms of how that potentially complicates the situation for China at a time when it is very much trying to play a much bigger role as far as foreign policy is concerned, brokering that deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran earlier this year. But this just goes to show perhaps there is this view that China's not ready to play such a big role. How does that factor into, I suppose, some of the considerations if you are a smaller country signing on to the BRI, looking for leadership here?
Well, yes and no. China basically has got a different conception of leadership, and they're saying to developing countries, in our order, developing countries will be at the center of that. And I'm not sure that China's position on Ukraine and now Israel, Gaza, affects its broader impetus on sort of being the leader of the developing world, the leader of the so-called global south and the like, because its position on those issues is pretty much aligned with the position of the countries, gathered in Beijing at the moment. So yes, it's complicated China's relations with Europe, with the United States, with many Western countries. I don't think it's upset its broader momentum, its longer-term plan to have this alternative set of institutions and the like, and way of thinking about the world from the United States. So it's difficult, but I think they think they can manage it.
Richard, I have to ask you, despite Chuck Schumer's best efforts, the official line from Beijing on what's going on in Israel right now obviously didn't come out fully in support of Israel at all. In fact, you could argue that China seems to officially fall very much on the side of the Palestinians and their suffering, and also reiterating that they think the real solution is a two-state solution, which, and I think the irony is not lost on people, sounds a little rich coming from China. And this is with regards to Taiwan, obviously.
Yes, we're not going for the two-state solution there, that's for sure. But I think it's pretty, China has always valued its relation with Israel, mainly over because it's interested in Israeli technology to a degree, dry land farming. But I think we see in this current conflict that China's priority is not Israel, it's the Middle East, where BRI and the tech stuff that Samantha talked about before is really still going on. So, China values its relationship with the Middle East, Saudi and Iran in particular. And of course, China today in the Middle East is like America 30 years ago. They rely on Middle Eastern oil, and they have to secure that, and their foreign policy is tailored to that aim. And I think that's why you've seen them being pretty firmly on the side of the Palestinians over the last week.
Richard, when you take a step back from BRI 10 years on, and when you consider the key performance metrics and indicators, is it accelerating trade flows? Is trade flowing? Is it emerging as a counter-narrative to CPTP and RCEP? And are these projects viable and generating revenue for the beneficiary countries?
Well, it's a variable picture. There's no doubt that China has built some valuable infrastructure in some countries, not so valuable in other countries. But let's take two countries, for example. Pakistan, which is probably the biggest recipient of BRI money, their economy is now smaller than it was in 2018. Now, is that the fault of BRI necessarily? No. But still, it shows that the BRI is not a sort of magic weapon to fix all of these things. In terms of the counter-narrative, I mean, I think BRI has been quite a successful political initiative for China. It's not a counter-narrative to RCEP or CPTPP, because China's in them as well. It's a counter-narrative to the West. It's a counter-narrative to what China would say is a security-centered world order, whereas I think that BRI really is the building blocks for China to build its own security-centered world order, if you like.
That's
so I think
Richard. Can I just ask you about that? Because that was my next question. Is there, would you go as far to say, as this is almost, I mean, there's been a perception that it's a Trojan horse, and this is China building a strategic sphere of influence, whether it's a string of pearls in the Indian Ocean area and a threat to India or elsewhere?
Yes, I think it's not even a Trojan horse in a way. It's kind of out in the open. It is a strategic sphere of influence. I mean, China is entitled to do that if it wants, but we should see it for what it is. And initially, it is about economic connectivity. That's certainly the case. Central Asia, Southeast Asia. On top of that connectivity, which China has built, we now have the sort of norms and values to go on top of that. And the norms and values there, China is explicit about this, are different from what it regards as the US-led order. So it's an economic project and a political project all in one.
Hi, I'm Emily Tan, and thanks for watching CNBC. You can check out more of our videos by clicking on the boxes on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks for watching.